You know, some cities are built on solid rock, others on sand. But San Francisco, it feels like it was built on an idea. The wild idea of constant radical reinvention. This is a city that was literally forged in the chaos of a gold rush, completely leveled by fire, and then rebuilt on pure, uncut dreams. Its entire story is just this cycle of boom, bust, and rebirth that, believe it or not, is still happening right now. So, you gotta wonder, right? How does a place like this, perched on the very edge of a continent, right on top of a massive seismic fault line, not only survive, but constantly manage to redefine itself over and over again? Okay, let's get into it. Long before the bridges, before the cable cars, before even a whisper of gold, this place was a totally different world. For thousands of years, it was this pristine landscape, carefully managed by its original inhabitants. Then, the Spanish arrived. They set up missions that would just forever change the social and economic fabric of the region. They brought new beliefs, new ways of farming, and really reshaped this land long before the first nugget of gold was ever pulled from a stream. And what you're seeing here is a glimpse into that world. This was the incredibly sophisticated network of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. It wasn't just one tribe. It was a whole collection of distinct groups, like the Yalamu, who thrived right where San Francisco is today. Each one of these communities was autonomous, and they managed the land in this beautiful, delicate balance, a system that sustained them for millennia. Now get this. This fact right here feels almost prophetic, doesn't it? When Captain John C. Fremont named the street, he wasn't thinking about gold in the ground. He called it the Golden Gate because he was thinking of the Golden Horn of Istanbul. He was imagining this epic gateway for trade with Asia. The man had absolutely no idea how literal that name was about to become. And then, the spark. What happened next wasn't just growth, it was a human detonation. The discovery of gold took this quiet little outpost and just lit it on fire, turning it into a global phenomenon, defined by both unimaginable wealth and, well, catastrophic disaster. Let's put this in perspective. In 1847, the village of Yerba Buena, that's what it was called, had a population of maybe 450 people. Total. It was a sleepy little port, mostly trading cowhides. By the end of 1849, just 2 years later, that number exploded to 25,000. People poured in from every corner of the globe, all of them chasing this same dream. That quiet village was just gone. In its place was this chaotic, sprawling, instant city. And the scene in the harbor was just as insane. By 1851, there were nearly 800 ships just sitting there, abandoned. Their crews had all caught gold fever and just bolted for the hills. This forest of masts, as they called it, completely clogged the cove, and many of those ships, they were eventually just sunk and buried, becoming the literal foundation of the modern financial district. But the city's greatest trial by fire started on April 18, 1906. A massive earthquake ripped the San Andreas Fault open. But the shaking? That was just the beginning. The fires that broke out afterward were the real catastrophe. They burned for 3 straight days and just consumed over 80% of the city. This quote from a survivor really captures that horrifying moment of realization. But even from those ashes, the city was somehow already dreaming up its next chapter. And that next chapter, it was written in steel, high above the churning water. Right in the middle of the Great Depression, when everything seemed hopeless, San Francisco didn't just rebuild. It reached for the impossible. It decided to take on a project that would become a global symbol of pure ambition and resilience. They literally called it the bridge that couldn't be built. And, I mean, for good reason. How in the world do you span a strait with violent tides, winds that could reach hurricane force, fog so thick you can't see your hand in front of your face, and the San Andreas Fault just 7 miles offshore? It sounded like complete science fiction. Pulling this off required ingenuity that was just completely off the charts. It all started with Joseph Strauss's incredibly audacious design. Then they had to send divers to build a foundation 1,000 feet out in the open, turbulent ocean. After that came the high-wire act of spinning the massive cables, and finally hanging the roadway itself. Every single one of these steps was a monumental, world-first achievement. Now, Chief Engineer Strauss was obsessed with safety, which was pretty rare back then. He made hard hats mandatory, and most famously, he installed this massive safety net under the bridge. It cost $130,000, and it worked. 19 men who fell were saved by that net. They became proud members of what they called the Halfway to Hell Club. But even with all those precautions, the project was not without tragedy. In total, 11 men lost their lives, and 10 of them died in a single horrific accident when a section of scaffolding collapsed and ripped right through the safety net. It's just a sobering reminder of the real human cost of building these incredible monuments. So as the city physically reconnected itself to the world, its cultural identity was also going through this profound reinvention. San Francisco started cementing its reputation not just as a place for business, but as a sanctuary, a haven for people who didn't quite fit in anywhere else. This timeline here, it charts this remarkable journey from the shadows into real political power. It started quietly, right after World War II, when the military dishonorably discharged thousands of gay service members in the port city. A lot of them just chose to stay, and they built a community. That community grew into organizations like the Daughters of Brilliance, and that led to these pivotal acts of resistance, like the Compton's Cafeteria Riot, a protest led by transgender women 3 years before Stonewall. By the time Harvey Milk was elected, the LGBTQ+ community wasn't just a subculture, it had become a defining force in the city's very soul. And that brings us to the city's most modern era, its latest and greatest reinvention, the digital one. From the dot-com bubble to the AI boom happening right now, San Francisco has once again become a global epicenter, riding this massive wave of explosive growth and, of course, facing all the complex challenges that always come with it. But it's important to see the contrast between the city's tech booms. The dot-com bubble back in 2000, that was fueled by pure speculation and debt. You had companies with zero profits that were worth astronomical sums of money. Today's AI boom, while it's huge, is built on a much more solid foundation. It's being driven by these massively profitable tech giants with enormous cash reserves, so the valuations, while still high, are a bit more, grounded in reality. But this latest boom came right after a major bust, one that was supercharged by the pandemic and the huge shift to remote work. Commercial real estate values just fell off a cliff, dropping almost 80% from their peak in 2019. But in classic San Francisco fashion, this crisis is already being seen as an opportunity, a chance to reinvent downtown by converting all those empty office towers into desperately needed housing. So the story of this city is really one of perpetual motion. It's a place that sees upheaval not as an ending, but as the spark for whatever comes next. And no symbol captures that spirit better than the bridge that couldn't be built. It has seen everything, and if it could speak, maybe it would say something like this: I've stood through storms, gold, revolutions, and dreams. If my story moved you, connect with me. Like this journey, subscribe to stay crossing new stories with us. Share this bridge of history and comment your thoughts below. I'm listening.